So today is Monday, Hey Iyar, Tafshin Ayin Gimel, and we are in the Maimer of Shabbos Pasha Shlach, Mevorchim Achedesh Tammuz Tafshin Yud Aleph, Dibur Hamascha Shlach Lecha, and we are up to Val Pizeh, on page Kuf Beis at the bottom. The last paragraph in Ois Beis in chapter 2. The question is, what was the point of Moshe Rabbeinu sending or agreeing to the Meraglim being sent into Eretz Yisrael? If Hashem said, go, and if the miracles that would have happened had Moshe Rabbeinu taken the Yidden into Eretz Yisrael would have been very great, even greater than the miracles that, or at least as great as the miracles that happened when Yeshua took the Yidden into Eretz Yisrael, which was which took place through an angel, with an angel. Whereas if Moshe Rabbeinu would have taken the Yidden in, Hashem himself would have led them and joined Moshe Rabbeinu in leading the Yidden into Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe started explaining that the chidush, the innovation that took place when Yidden entered into Eretz Yisrael is the concept of mitzvahs maisius. Practical mitzvahs, performing mitzvahs in action, practically. In the Midbar, the Yidden were more in a state of spirituality. Their connection to Hashem was more a spiritual one. Their avodas Hashem, the service of Hashem, was more spiritual, whereas when they came into Eretz Yisrael, the actual physical performance of mitzvahs began in earnest. And the Rebbe started explaining the special quality that active, practical mitzvahs have over serving Hashem in a spiritual way by introducing to us the two types of tzaddikim that are b'bchinas livyoson and tzaddikim that are b'bchinas shein abar. Tzaddikim whose neshamas, even after they come down here, are like the Leviathan, which is a reference to a sea-living animal, a fish that lives in the sea. Alma de Iskasia, the concealed world, where it's never separated from its life source. It needs to be there all the time. So even these are neshamas that when they come down here into this world, they remain neshamas of Alma de Iskasia, of the other world. And therefore they serve Hashem spiritually. Liyachid yichudim elyonim. The emphasis of their avodas Hashem is to unite celestial unions. Whereas then you have tzaddikim that are called Sheir Habar, the great ox, and these are tzaddikim.
The celestial unions, I think this are the Yehudim.
Correct. Liyachid yichudim elyonim. And he brought the example of the Rashbi in the cave, the Arizal, Baal Shem Tov, right?
What's the principle of the Yehudim?
Let me just conclude the summary of what we said before. Then you have tzaddikim that are b'chinas sheir habar, tzaddikim that serve Hashem in a physical way. The emphasis of their avodas Hashem is to do physical mitzvahs, active, practical physical mitzvahs. And although serving Hashem spiritually seems to be a higher mode of serving Hashem, nonetheless, they too, those that serve Hashem in the spiritual sense, also need to serve Hashem physically. Everybody has to fulfill mitzvahs practically, because through performing a mitzvah begashmeis physically, you actually link in to a godly level, a godly revelation, which is far greater than the norm. Because as he brought from the pasuk, it says in the pasuk, that Hashem says, Moshe said to the Jewish people, you live not on bread alone, but you live on the mitzvah Hashem, the utterance of Hashem's mouth. That's what the person lives on. And the question is, what does that mean? The person himself also exists through the utterance of Hashem's mouth. What's the difference between the Motzei Pi Hashem that there is in the human being on his own and the Motzei Pi Hashem, the utterance of Hashem's mouth, that's in the food? And the answer is that although it's on a lower level, food is on a lower level than the human being, nonetheless, based on the principle that whatever is greater, whatever is higher, falls lower, comes down lower, therefore that means that although, as we see it, as it is, it's at a lower level than the human being, food, nonetheless, in its source, it is higher than the life force, the physical life force of the human being. And therefore, through a Yid making a bracha on the food and eating the food for the purpose of Serving Hashem, he reveals that source in the food, and therefore links into a level of godliness which is higher than him in its source. And once he reveals that, that then has the power to sustain the person, and he has the ability to link into that higher level. What was your question, Eddie?
About Yehudim, that's right.
What about Yehudim?
What's the principle of Yehudim? Yehudim is putting the letters together.
Well, the principle of Yehudim is, to the best of
achieving it. It's not what's about.
the best I can.
Hashem one.
Sorry,
Making Hashem one.
it's not only making Hashem. It's not the sense over here of you talking about Achus Hashem, oneness of Hashem. We're talking over here about, as it were, mixing or combining different manifestations of godliness as they are in their spiritual.
Through the letters.
Through whatever, if you open up the Kabbalah, you'll find that, for example, in the Kisvei Arizal, he goes through, for example, Tefillah, and he explains how each part of the davening, which yichudim you accomplish through the various parts of davening. Every mitzvah also accomplishes certain yichudim. For example, it's like mixing the ingredients. It's like making a cake, right? So you have to have so much flour and so much eggs and so much sugar and so much, whatever the other ingredients you have there. The ruchnis you also have, and depending on what ingredients you mix and on the ratio, that will determine the result you'll get, right? Similarly, when you do mitzvahs, there are spiritual ingredients. There's chesed, there's gvura, there's shem havaya, shem adakim, etc., etc., right? To the extent that you combine these various godly forces and the ratio of these godly forces, that is the result you're going to get. So that's accomplished normally, as we know it, through performance of the mitzvahs that we do. Of course, most of us don't know the details of these yichudim. So it's a general type of yichud. For example, we say l'shem yichud kutsha b'richu shchinte, right? Before Baruch Shamar, what do we say? Liyachta. Yudke bevavke b'yichud ashlim, right? It's a yichud. So we do it before Baruch Shamar, and our minik Chabad is that it goes for the whole day. Other people do it before every mitzvah. But again, the details are not spelled out. If you open up certain Sfaradish, you'll find all sorts of yichudim.
Is that just an example of the Miyachad Yichudim?
Yes, yeah.
Because Chanukh is described to be Miyachad
Correct.
Yichudim.
Yeah, he served Hashem in a ruchnistic way.
Yeah.
So there are certain. Now, this is something that takes place generally. But then you have the Rashbi, for example, when he was in the cave, he couldn't fulfill physical mitzvahs. So how did he serve Hashem? He had the ability, the ruchnistic ability, because his neshama was from such a high level, from Alma the Iskasya, to serve Hashem in a spiritual mode, to serve Hashem spiritually, and cause these yichudim to take place and to manifest those spiritual forces.
Are the spheres a manifestation of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei?
In fact, spheres, when you talk about it, yes, they are, in general and also in particular. For example, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, when you talk about the spheres, Yud is Chachma, Hey is Bina, Vav is the 6 Midas, and the final Hey is Malchus. Okay? In Olam is also, Atzilus is, Yud is Atzilus, Hey is Bria, Vav is Yitzira, and the final Hey is Asiyah. So, and then if you go into more detail, you find this also. But then you also have all different sorts of shemis. You have Yud Gimel with the Sarachamim, you have Kael, you have Elikim, you have all sorts of different shemis. These all represent forces, godly forces. Okay, so that's the Liyachad Yichudim. So now we know that there's a way of serving Hashem spiritually, Liyachad Yichudim, and there's a way of serving Hashem physically, through the performance of physical mitzvahs. What happened when the Yidden came into Eretz Yisrael? And when you serve Hashem with a physical mitzvah, you are able to link in, through performing the mitzvah with a physical object in a physical way, you discover within that, you reveal within that physical act and within the physical object, a spark of godliness, a godly energy, which is beyond the norm. An unusually high godly energy. And that took place. When did that happen? When did that begin? In earnest, when the Yidden came into Eretz Yisrael, when they entered into Eretz Yisrael, where they started engaging with the physical world. So at the bottom of page Kuf Beis, according to this, we will also understand a special quality in the serving in the service in the Yidden serving Hashem that began when they entered into Eretz Yisrael, relative to the way they served Hashem when they were in the desert. When they were in the desert, they had bread from heaven. On the top of page Kuf Gimel, and water from the well, from Miriam's well, which used to roll and follow them and come along with them. So that was spiritual. I mean, it was physical. They actually ate and drank, but it was miraculous. It wasn't usual. The gam halavushim, and also the clothing, shem davar nifrot, which is something completely separate from the human being. The clouds of glory would clean them and press them and iron them. And not only that, but the garments, their clothing, actually grew with them. As Rashi brings in Chumash, which means that the growth, the maturity in their soul, which brings along usually, and also brought along by the Eden, a growth in their physical body, also caused automatically also a growth in their clothing. For although the clothing on their own are actually separate from the human being, and usually, if you outgrow your clothes, you need to get more clothes, right? What's the connection between the clothing and the human being? It's something foreign that you're putting onto your body. Nonetheless, in the midbar of the desert, the clothing also grew with them. So what does that mean? The bottom line is that they were disengaged from needing they were disengaged from Gashmis, from physical, from having to work for what? For achieving a physical result. It also says that the Deir of the Midbar was known as a Deir Deya. They were a very knowledgeable, intellectual, a very high. They were more. Their emphasis was more on the meichin, on the intellectual capacities of the human being. Right. In other words, their entire mode was to engage with in a relationship with Hashem through ruchnias, to disengage from gashmias, and that's why it manifests itself also in how things transpired in the desert in terms of eating and drinking and clothing and so on and so forth. Since when they were in the desert, they did not need to occupy themselves with physical matters. That's why their serving Hashem was only in the mode of machshava, thought, or speech. Which is also hinted in the concept of midbar, the idea of what midbar represents. The word midbar, desert, shehu gam miloshen dibur. Midbar is also from the expression of dibur, speech, as it says in the pasuk in Shir Hashirim, u'midbarich nove. When Shlomo Melech describes the beauty of the Jewish people, one of the things he says over there is u'midbarich no, and your speech, nove, and your speech is pleasant. How does he refer to speech? U'midbarich. Why doesn't he say udvarich or v'diburich? So we see from here that midbarich is what? Is speech. What kind of speech are we talking about? Shehim mitzvah Talmud Torah. This was a reference to the learning of Torah, the mitzvah of learning Torah. Sheikara b'peh, which is mainly in the mouth. K'mayim azal, as our sages teach in the Gemara and the Talmud. Ala posik, on the verse in Mishlei. Chaim, Mishlei is Proverbs, yes. Chaim heim lemeitz ehem. The posik in Mishlei, Shlomo Melech describes Torah as life to those that find her, lemeitz ehem. So Chazal say not that lemeitz ehem could also be read lemeitzi ehem, to those that articulate it, to those that express it, that take it out. What does that mean? They take it out from the inside. They express it. Lemeitzi ehem bepeh, to those that actually say the words of Torah by uttering it in words through their mouth. So we see that what midbar is related to the idea of speech. Learning Torah, more emphasis on what? On the more spiritual aspects of serving Hashem. So that is how the Yidden served Hashem when they were in the Midbar. Mainly. That was the emphasis. But when they entered into Eretz Yisrael, what was the new innovation? What was introduced when they entered into Eretz Yisrael that didn't exist when they were in the desert, the fulfillment of practical mitzvahs with physical objects specifically. Shehu inyan yeser, which is a higher matter, a higher inyan than what? Than serving Hashem spiritually, as the Rebbe explained before. Another few lines. Okay, we'll stop here. Continue this tomorrow.